Okay, so just a little bit of news before we get into the actual fun stuff. I'm going to bore you with some of the more important stuff at the beginning of this. So, as I'm sure many of you are aware, and many of the drama people that like to farm a lot of the information have been covering the FTC Commission's statement about the settlement that occurred with Cognosphere or Hoyoverse, whatever you want to call the company. And I just wanted to address a few issues that I feel like are getting a little bit oversighted by this. If you want my personal take, I think this is a good thing. It's going to show that we're going to see a lot of changes in the industry, and we're going to get into that a little bit more later. So, TLDR, the biggest two takeaways from this is Cognosphere, Genshin, Hoyo, they're in the wrong here. They're violating two big issues, one of which is deceptive business practices, which goes against FTC rules, and the other thing is COPPA violations with collecting the private information of children under the age of 13. And also the problem of, selling gambling loot boxes to people under 16, but that's also another big issue. So people, due to the timing of this, people seem to think that this is targeted at Chinese companies, but I wanted to pull up something from the concurring statement of the FTC Commissioner Rebecca Kelly-Slaughter, who does bring up that this is targeted at the industry as a whole. And even says, where is it? There we go. This law enforcement action is the first by the United States to address the growing scourge of so-called loot boxes in video games. Not in Genshin, in video games. A problem with which many parents and all gamers are likely familiar. I extend my heartfelt thanks to the distinguished staff of the FTC, whose tireless efforts investigating the defendant's conduct is commendable and resolve the negotiations led to this historic complaint and settlement. They go on to say that because of their stellar work, we have a strong message to send to the video game industry. Not to the Chinese game industry or the gacha game industry, the video game industry. They will be going after other companies if they don't follow suit with the changes that were demanded of the Hoyoverse, or whatever they want to call themselves. Cognosphere. I'm going to say Cognosphere because that's what the primary name on the US versus Cognosphere LLC. But for the most part, that's what's going to be at play here. They're given a whole list of rules that they're going to have to comply with. The rules being as followed: prohibited from allowing children under 16 to purchase loot boxes, which I feel like the easy answer to almost all these complaints is, from now on, every gacha game is just going to be 18 plus. That would be the easy way solution that I would recommend to all of them, which solves a lot of these problems. If they want to maintain what they're doing without having to change very little, that would be the easy way to do it. Make them 18 plus, make them have a way to confirm that they're 18 plus. That way, it then gets on the child or whoever steals the credit card. If they still gamble after that, that's on them. It'll be on the parents for letting them play an 18 plus game. Then it becomes the parents' fault. But until that happens, this is mostly the company's fault for allowing people under the age of 16 to basically interact with gambling. That is basically the objectively correct take that you should be taking away from this. So, if anyone doesn't complain with these rules, they're going to get hit. Now, I would also like to point out that it is mentioned in Rebecca's statement as well. Let me see if I can find it again. In the future, loot boxes, the Commission will be investigating first and see if it constitutes any unfair or deceptive practices. So they're going to be going after loot boxes in the future. That is a plan that they do plan on doing. The Commission should continue to prioritize protecting children and teens for unfair deceptive practices in video games, meaning that they're going to keep going after other people. This is something that's been in the process since 2019, I believe. Yeah, this has been basically ongoing since 2019. Cognosphere got hit because they're just a big fish, so it's going to get a lot of eyes on the case. In conjunction with the workshop, the Commission received 117 relevant comments from the public. 116 relevant comments from the public. This work set the stage for the investigations and enforcement. So in other words, there was 116 public complaints about this issue, meaning The Department of Justice is the one that's filing this through the FCC, as far as I understand it. This means that this is not just a Genshin problem, is my biggest takeaway, and that's all you should really be taking away from this. This is not really just the FTC versus Genshin. Genshin is just the first of many. They're going to be targeting the industry as a whole. Also, I would encourage any parents, family, or people that feel that they have been deceived or have been victims of other games, especially Western ones, that have been manipulated. I know FIFA gets brought up a lot. You can bring up this stuff to the FTC. I would recommend filing a complaint with the FTC if you have legal standing to do so. This is not legal advice. This is just me saying that there are other companies in the industry that are causing problems, and they're in the wrong, and they should suffer for it. That being said, messages to anyone in the video game industry. If you don't want to get hit with a $20 million fine every single time you get hit with a violation, just make some changes. These are the only rules they're asking for. And also, Rebecca makes a mention of it in her little statement that she gave, which you can find all of this on the FTC website. It's all publicly available. They are planning to look forward into Congress to see if we can get more legislation and more rules enforced. But with the current rules we have on the books, everything you see I have highlighted here is something that every gaming industry has to follow. As long as you follow these rules, gaming industry, you're fine. I say that with an asterisk, being that you might be fine, but at the same time, you are probably still morally bankrupt. Taking advantage of gambling and the fact that there's a lack of legislation in this field. I personally think that the Federal Gaming Commission should also be involved in this, because it is effectively gambling in most of the gacha space. And personally, I'm not an expert in this field. I just wanted to draw some attention to aspects of the case that I feel like are being a little bit overlooked. I know with the TikTok banning, people think this might just be singling out Chinese companies, but at the same time, they are planning on going after other gaming industry. They're going after loot boxes next, so stay up to date on the news, but legislation takes a long time, and not to mention, legal cases take a long time, so it might be 2 to 5 years before we actually see any real change. That's all I wanted to say. I'll get off my soapbox now. If you'd like to see me cover more news like this, actually, I'm more than willing to. I don't like farming drama. I don't like farming engagement. But when it comes to, like, regulation, safety, politics, I care quite a bit. Video games are a large aspect of my life, and it's very rare that my loves of politics and video games intersect like this. And an issue that I'm actually partially involved in. I've been playing Hoyo games for the last 2 years. And, frankly, I think that, as someone who loves gambling, I do think it should be more regulated. I do think that these companies are taking advantage of vulnerable people. I don't like the fact that we have, like, 3 currencies that are obscuring how much the value of an individual pool in a game is. And I'm probably going to get a lot of hate comments for this one video, because I don't usually cover stuff like this. And I'm prepared to do that. But for those of you who are following this live, that's the end of the video here. I'm going to go and enjoy some fun stuff, and you guys can look forward to that in the future, because now we're going to go and react to the 4.5 special program.